Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about fibromyalgia, the symptoms, the effects, and how it can help you and let you understand a loved one that is going through fibromyalgia today. Fibromyalgia is a pretty complex disorder that is widely confused with autoimmune diseases. So the main and vital difference between an autoimmune disease and fibromyalgia is that autoimmune diseases can be measurably detected, but fibromyalgia does not have a measurable way of detecting it. And the way they usually come to the conclusion of fibromyalgia is they will test for everything else that have very similar symptoms. And if you have none of it, then they will say you have fibromyalgia. So basically the way they test it for it is called a test of exclusion. It's testing for everything else. And if you don't have that, then you probably will have and be diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So I'm just going to go over now the symptoms associated with fibromyalgia. And just a very important point to note here is just because you have some of the symptoms does not necessarily mean you have fibromyalgia. And also you do not have to have all these symptoms. So the first main symptom to talk about here is widespread body pain. So basically the person deals with pain 24 hours a day. It doesn't stop and it's continuous. And another really interesting factor to note in this with the symptoms being mentioned is that the pain can migrate from place to place within the body. So I'm going to use myself as an example because I am a fibromyalgia sufferer myself. And basically every day when I wake up, I don't know which place is going to hurt me the most. So I have the widespread body pain, it doesn't go, but the place that hurts the most changes every day. So for example, if I woke up today with arm pain, like left arm pain, for example, then I might have real big difficulties trying to move my arm. And it can make it difficult to drive, it can make it difficult to lift things, it can make it difficult, to write, and so on and so forth. Another symptom is brain fog. So I think the name here kind of gives it away. So brain fog is basically when your brain just feels foggy, like there's like a cloud on top of it. And it can make it really difficult to concentrate, and it can make it even difficult to form sentences. And the problem with brain fog is that it can actually affect your job tasks. It can affect you even socializing, which is something so simple. The third symptom I'm going to talk about is a bit of a controversial one. So the third symptom is depression. And the reason why it is basically controversial is because you might be misdiagnosed for depression. So you might have fibromyalgia and people or doctors misdiagnose you for depression, and you might have depression and be misdiagnosed for fibromyalgia. The reason being is because the symptoms are so similar between the two. But I would say the biggest difference between the both of them is that if you have a symptom of depression from fibromyalgia, it is usually causal depression. So causal depression means that you are depressed because of having daily body pains and aches, because of dealing with brain fog and all these other symptoms every day. It just gets exhausting. And I think a big one is sometimes just realizing that you're going to have to live with this for the rest of your life. The thing is with depression itself is usually that you're just depressed and you can't really explain why, and it's more of a chemical imbalance in the brain. But the thing is, you can have the symptom of causal depression, which is like part of fibromyalgia, or you can also have depression on top of it, which would be just like the chemical imbalance of the brain. The fourth and interesting one is fatigue. So basically, sleep doesn't aid in you feeling less fatigued or feeling like you've had restful sleep. It just won't happen. And this is a very interesting symptom, and I'd like you to understand it whether you suffer from fibromyalgia or not. So I'm going to use a really bad example here, but it's the only thing I can think of for you to get an idea. So basically, let's say you have had a situation of fear, and I'm going to use the example of having really bad turbulence and thinking that you're like being in an airplane and thinking like that the airplane is going to fall. So when you have that experience, I know it's such a bad example. I may or may not have fears of airplanes on my own, but it's the best example I could use. So let's say that you basically went through the experience of like feeling the plane is going to fall. Usually what happens is it's like a fight or flight response. Like, you know, you can either freeze or you can either like try to fight it and like scream or something. But what will happen when like, you know, the plane finally stabilizes later, you may feel fatigued, like so tired, because your body just felt like it went out under attack. So this is what's happening with someone who has fibromyalgia. Their body always feels like it's endangered, always feels like it's in threat. So it's always tensing up the muscles and trying to protect itself. So that's the theory of why the fatigue is there. It's just that it's consistent pain, which is because the body feels like it's under threat. So it's always trying to protect itself, and therefore it results in fatigue. And then another interesting one is sensitivities. And this can be sensitivities to sounds, to smells, to taste, to touch, or it could be sensitivity even to light, or you name it. The next point that is kind of related is sleeping issues. So when I say sleeping issues, that can mean like you're sleeping too little, you're sleeping too much, you're just feeling tired all the time. It could be like chronic fatigue or insomnia, where you're just not able to sleep, or maybe your like sleeping pattern is all over the place. So that would apply for me, for example, where I can either sleep too much or sleep too little, and I'm tired regardless. Like even when I sleep too little and can't go to sleep, I'm so tired, and then my sleeping schedule all just gets messed up. Like I can sleep maybe one day at 6 a.m. in the morning, the next day I'm asleep at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, the next day at 7 p.m. at night. It's just all over the place, and the sleep can get ridiculous, of like sleeping 2, 3, 4 hours until like sleeping 16 hours. And there is actually something to manage this, and please get in contact with me and we can discuss it more if this is something you're suffering from. Point number 6. Point number 6 is all sorts of headaches. Tension headaches, migraines, you name it, it is possible. And I'm also an example where I don't only suffer from migraines. I can have tension headaches where it's like tension, you feel like tension, like something just squishing your head on the sides. Like not squishing, that sounds nice. I mean like more like really pressuring your head on the sides. There's the halo kind of headaches, all sorts of just bad headaches. The last symptom I'm going to mention here is nausea. There's not too much I can say about being nauseous. For a woman who's maybe had children, may relate to it to morning sickness. It's just all the time. I don't know, men probably hangovers, you know, that nauseous feeling. It's just like all the time, can't get rid of it. Some people, for them it goes and comes. Some people realize that specific things trigger it more than others. And now we're going to move on to the effects of fibromyalgia and how it can affect you and your life and the people around you. So whether you're suffering from fibromyalgia or you know a loved one suffering from fibromyalgia, please listen to this because this is very, very important. The first important effect that fibromyalgia can have on a person, like I've mentioned before, is depression. The second one I'm going to talk about here is irritability. So irritability is not that the person is just like a horrible person who's just like annoyed all the time and has a bad attitude. It's just that it's so difficult to deal on a daily basis when your body is just going through constant pain and you're having all these different sensitivities, sensitivity to the TV sound, to the light, to someone talking, to a cologne someone is putting on. So you can just like naturally become irritated at everything. And I know this is going to sound bad, but when people keep on trying to give someone with fibromyalgia advice, that's super irritating because we know that they are trying to be like as good as possible to us and they're doing it out of love. But the thing is, we've tried everything, and if those things work, we would have been cured by now, and it just doesn't. Like, I've been accused of having like a bad lifestyle by people that don't know me, and if they knew anything about my life, they would know I have a fairly healthy lifestyle. Like, I prefer to eat healthy, I stay away from specific foods, I've done food intolerance tests, and by the way, fibromyalgia people, I would suggest you to do that because that can affect in your irritable bowel syndrome. Another effect of fibromyalgia, which is a really, really sad one, is isolation. So isolation is when the sufferer puts themselves in a position, and this can happen drastically or it can happen gradually, where the person tends to isolate themselves. So they will stop engaging with family and friends, they won't go to gatherings anymore, and they will just rather be by themselves. And it's not that, yeah, they're making the choice to be by themselves, but it's because when they're around people, they don't want to complain about being in pain all the time, and they don't like the fact that they can't focus when having a conversation with family and friends. They don't want to hear the advice from people that are not dealing with it, and they don't want to be the irritated, depressed one around their friends all the time. So because they're feeling so alone with what they're going through, they tend to prefer to isolate themselves and be alone because they just feel that's best for them and everyone else around them. And this is a really, really sad one. And I say it with sadness as I'm talking about it because, you know, in general, people that isolate themselves end up to be really lonely people. And we do kind of want to cry for help, but we don't know what to do when we feel like the medical field has failed us, and that's supposed to be like the best field out there that can help us. So where do we turn to, and what do we do when nobody around us understands what we're going through? Because even if they're trying to understand, you're not going through it. And this is just the cycle that goes into the psyche of someone with fibromyalgia. Another effect, which I had to learn through the doctors, was conditioning. So basically, when you are feeling like you are in pain all the time, what do you tend to do? You tend to go to bed, sit on a chair, lay down on a chair, like you just don't want to move that much because you feel like everything you do hurts you. But for the fibromyalgia sufferers who don't know this already, let me ask you this. Do you feel any better when you're laying down or sitting or not moving? I guarantee you the answer is no. Because I'll explain to you why you don't feel better. Because when you are a position where you are not moving, there's something that is called muscle conditioning. So the muscle conditioning makes your muscles, I know they're in pain, but it makes them become like mush. And when they become like mush, it makes it difficult to do regular movements like walking around and whatever. So even though you think you are resting and therefore you will become better, you are actually doing more harm than good. And if you are in the position where you are not moving a lot, I know that is so hard to start. Trust me, I've been there, but you have to start somewhere. So I would urge you to just take baby steps, even if it takes you a few months to become active again. Just take baby steps and start to move around, no matter what, even if you are in pain. And trust me, you will kick and scream in the beginning, but just give it time and things will get better. You will not get cured, but you will get better. Another important note to note about conditioning is the conditioning of the mind of, if I move, I will be in pain. And you are probably not thinking about it consciously, but it's something in your subconscious. So you need to retrain your brain to realize it is okay to move, and you have to tell yourself and use positive affirmations with yourself. I will, I can, it is okay, I will not get hurt, everything is going to be all right. So try this out today and let me know how it goes. So I just want to make a little bit more pointers on fibromyalgia and what it is exactly. So basically, fibromyalgia is a central sensitization of the nervous system. So I want to explain this because I think it's so important for you to understand what it means exactly. So the example I'm going to use here is me. If I were in the kitchen right now and I was cooking some food, the stove is on this side, and I'm doing something on this side, and I wasn't looking and the stove is here and I put my hand on it. What happens is the nerves in my hand send a signal up my arm, through my spine, and then up my neck to my brain to let me know that something dangerous happened. So what happens in return, my brain sends a signal down my spine and back through my arm into my hand with a burning sensation. And that is for me, Nadia, to know that, hey, your hand is on danger. And what do? I remove my hand off the stove. I'm gonna probably do a few other stuff, like put it underwater, put it in ice, I don't know, go to the emergency, something. But my point is that process of the nerves through the spinal cord, through the brain, and the brain back to the spinal cord to the nerves, there's something wrong with the signaling going on there. And it can be all three, it could be just one, this is just the theory of what is going on exactly and what causes the body to hurt all the time. But basically, there's a problem between the signaling and it causes you to feel like you were in constant pain. So basically, the signal's broke, guys. So it's not something to laugh about, but we have to make humor of our situation because we can't just dwell on it. But I felt like that is a very, very important point to note, because when I found out what was wrong with me, fibromyalgia, I didn't even know what it was, never heard of it. I researched it excessively, like you don't understand. And I did it for months on end, from the minute I woke up till the minute I went to sleep. And I had the time because at that point I wasn't working anymore. I found all these different theories of what's going on and everything. And then I finally went to the Mayo Clinic and they actually told me this. And it made so much sense to me because I was just all these different things didn't make sense. And I'm not discrediting other things, but I did my research, and I don't just mean my research, I mean that I did the treatments for all these different theories and nothing seemed to get better. The one other thing that I did find that helped a lot was changing up my diet. So I mentioned earlier, I did a food intolerance test. And I did the food intolerance test to begin with because I felt like maybe the root of my problem is in the gut. And I found out I was intolerant to so many things. It was just insane. What do I eat? I basically just couldn't go to restaurants because every single time one of those ingredients was in it. And I found out I was intolerant to gluten, I was intolerant to wheat, I was intolerant to barley, I was intolerant to yeast, I was intolerant to dairy. The list goes on, guys, but that is just the main things, and those things are in everything. So I just basically cut them out of my diet, and I felt that my stomach problems became so much better. My brain fog kind of reduced, not 100%, but it did reduce. And I'm not telling you guys to cut that all out. Every person is different, so you need to do a food intolerance test. And they really recommend to be on a Mediterranean diet. They say Mediterranean diets in general, for health-wise, is the best diet. And I would recommend, if you don't have the funds to do a food intolerance test, is just to stick to a Mediterranean diet. It's mainly fish, olive oils, cheeses, nuts, vegetables. It's a really great diet to stick to. Anyway, guys, I think that this was a very long video. I think I tried as much as possible to make it as informative as possible. If you have any questions, if you want any sessions, please get into contact with me. I'm going to be putting my details below as usual. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you like my content, and if you want to see more content like this, please let me know or comment down below. And aside from this, please add me on my Instagram, because I almost put content on a daily basis. Take a look at my captions, because my captions say a lot more than the photos themselves. And if there's anything else, as I mentioned, please let me know, and bye for now.